Should you still be applying to law school this cycle? Is it too late? Do you need to defer your application to next year? Should you still shoot your shot this year? Should you see what happens? What are the pros and cons? When are you supposed to apply? What should you do? For those of you who are new, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I'm the CEO of Montgomery Admissions Consulting, and I specialize in working with first-generation and minority applicants. And I'm really excited for the conversation that we are going to have today. So many people are at this pivotal moment, this pivotal decision of figuring out when they are supposed to be applying to law school and whether or not they should still be applying to law school this cycle. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the impact of your LSAT and your LSAT timeline on your applications. We are going to talk about when it makes sense to still apply this cycle and when it makes sense to really put that application on hold. We're going to talk about how your career trajectory and your career ambitions kind of play into that and how that will affect. We're going to talk about school list, and honestly, we're going to talk about realistic expectations. We are going to talk about how late is too late, because there is a point when the answer is yes, you should just apply next cycle if you're really serious about maximizing your career, maximizing your acceptances, maximizing your scholarship amount. And like I said, we're just going to just dive into how you can go about making this decision. Nothing in admissions is black and white. Admissions is basically one very large sea of gray. So what you're not going to find from this video is I'm not going to give you any hard and fast, you absolutely should apply right now, or you absolutely should wait till next cycle, because that is really a case-by-case decision, right? That's a personal decision. That is a professional decision for you in terms of your career. That's a nuanced decision. That's a decision that might involve other people. It might involve a spouse. It might involve your children. It might involve your parents. It might involve your employer. There's a lot of things that go into that decision. And every year when I work with students, I walk students through this decision, and I end up counseling students who are kind of at this crossroads. So I figured I really should make this a broader conversation, because this isn't something that there's a lot of guidance on. And I want you to feel confident going into this holiday season, going into 2022, confident about your plan. I think that everyone is ready for 2022. I don't know if you're listening in the comments, tell me how ready you feel for 2022, but oh my goodness, I feel like 2020 was obviously a very hard year with the pandemic, and I feel like we were all really excited for 2021, like, okay, yes, pandemic over, and that obviously has not happened. Here we are, right, with another variant, and so I... maybe naively, I'm feeling like, God, just bring me to 2022. It's an even number. It's a pretty number. It sounds great. I think that it's going to be a year full of blessings. And so, even as we go into this holiday season, and we are closing for winter break, we will actually be closed December 20th through January 3rd. But as we go into this holiday break, I just want to let you know that I'm praying blessings for your 2022. And part of that blessings is figuring out if you're going to start school in 2022 or if you're going to be applying in September of 2022. Let's talk about that first thing that you need to consider, and that's your LSAT score and your LSAT prep and your LSAT timeline. Now, I have told students repeatedly that you are more than a number. If you follow me on social media, which you all should be, you can follow us on Instagram at Montgomery Consulting. You should see also in the Barrier Breakers Facebook group, if you're a member of that group too, where we give free advice and support first-gen and minority students, as well as just, other students applying to law school. You should have seen a post that I shared last weekend from one of my students who I'm so incredibly proud of. She will be on this YouTube channel at some point in the near future, but she got into Berkeley Law, and she got in with a 152. And she absolutely deserves every single piece of that. She is such a dynamic student. She had such a plethora of work experience. She'd really been making an impact in her community. She had fantastic essays. I loved getting to know her and help her tell her authentic story. But when she was applying, she was like, there's really no way in hell that this is happening. Like, I have a 152. And I said, listen, We don't put limits on God, right? I've always said when I do the LSAT prayers, I pray that God will open doors that no man can shut, that if he wants you at a certain school, you'll be at that school. And she is going to Berkeley Law with a 152, and she absolutely deserves that. So I tell you that story and I share that with you because you are more than a number. I don't want you to ever discount yourself or say no to yourself, close the door on yourself, right? Tell God, it's okay. I don't want any blessings. Thank you. I don't need a miracle in my life right now. I'm actually straight with just, being ordinary. So I don't want you to tell, to cancel your own blessings, because sometimes that we do that. We're like, oh, I just shouldn't even apply because I have this LSAT score. That being said, there are some times when we have to be really honest with ourselves. I told you this was going to be a real conversation, right? Did you do what you needed to do for the LSAT? Because some of you are thinking about taking the January LSAT. Some of you are thinking about taking the February LSAT. And when you're making the decision, should you still apply to law school this cycle? Should you defer? For some of you, in your heart, you did not put your best foot forward with LSAT prep. You kind of prepped. You didn't really prep. You dawdled. You maybe did an hour here or there. You weren't committed. Maybe you were self-studying and you didn't invest in a tutor or a course. And you know that there's more that you can do. And I'm not talking about, some of you have been grinding. Okay? Some of you have been grinding this LSAT journey. And to be honest, if you have been grinding and grinding and grinding and your score isn't where you want it to be, but it's a decent score and you can be happy with the schools that you get into, and we'll talk about that, then it might be healthier for your mental health to maybe break up with the LSAT. But if you're someone who knows in their heart that if you just took another, honestly, 4 or 5 months to study, your score could go from a 152 to a 165, or from a 138 to a 150. If you know in your heart, if I really just committed myself, I've rushed the process. Maybe I started studying in October for the November LSAT. I'm looking at some of you because some of you did that. But if you're like, man, if I actually gave myself my best shot, my LSAT score could probably go up 10 points. Which could completely change the game, not just for the schools that you'll get accepted to, but even the schools that you get accepted to, honestly, your scholarship money is going to change, right? That's the difference. 10 points in the LSAT could be the difference between no scholarship money and going full ride, right? And that's a huge thing. And so if you know in your heart that you really did not do what you need to do. And I don't say this to say shame on you. Sometimes life gets in the way and sometimes God has divine timing. So some of you are like, man, I wanted to study for the LSAT, but my kid got sick this year. Or, my parents got COVID. I got COVID. Or maybe you lost your job or you needed to really be there for your spouse. Or maybe you got a promotion that you love at your job, but it was extra responsibilities. And honestly, the LSAT just did not happen. Maybe that's a sign that you should wait, because here's the thing. Your law school career is forever. I always say this. We do not make long-term decisions based on short-term emotions. I want you to really sit with and understand the magnitude of what I'm about to tell you. One, there are fantastic law schools across the spectrum, okay? Like University of Baltimore, shout out to my home state, Maryland. Love Maryland. They produce fantastic attorneys. They produce fantastic judges. A lot of the judges on the Montgomery County Circuit Court went to the University of Baltimore, right? It is a good employment score in this area. If I was someone who knew that I wanted to practice law in Maryland and I wanted the connections and I wanted a good alumni network in Maryland, University of Baltimore might be a fantastic community for me, a fantastic alumni base for me. Brooklyn Law has a fantastic employment score, right? There are schools that are lower ranked that are fantastic at their alumni base and at their engagement and at their employment opportunities. But wherever you go, you have to understand that unless you transfer, your alumni community is your community for life. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that's the alumni community that you're going to have. That's the degree that you're going to have. That's your law degree. This is not something that you just kind of rush. This is not something that you just are like, well, if I actually studied, I probably could have gone to these schools, but I didn't really study, so these schools are going to do. This is a huge deal. It's not just the 3 years and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, which honestly is big enough investment, but it is literally the rest of your life and the alumni community you're going to have for the rest of your life. And that is worth maybe taking an extra year if you know you have not prepared enough. If you know that you haven't started your essays yet and you want to go to top 14 schools, we have issues. I'm not saying it can't be done. It can be done. It can be. It can be done. But like, why is that the application process that you want? Why do you want to start your legal career rushing? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to rush. It doesn't feel good to submit things that are not your best work. It doesn't feel good to not show your authentic self. It doesn't feel good to know that you kind of half-assed the process and cut your blessings short, because that's what you're doing. Right? So some of you need to really look at your preparation for this application cycle and ask yourself, am I ready? Now, for some of you, the answer is yes. You've been working on your essays. You've been studying for your LSAT. And like I said, maybe your score is just not where you are, but you have done the work. And maybe it makes sense to apply this cycle, because if I'm going to be real with you, some of you have such a negative, emotional relationship with the LSAT. It's such a toxic test. That your score is probably not likely to actually go up so much more, not because you're not capable, but because the mindset and maybe the time. I mean, a lot of you have kids. I don't have any kids, but God bless you to those of you that have kids, right? Some of you know that you're not going to really be able to put the amount of time in or have the mindset needed to raise your LSAT score. And then at that point, let's just go with the LSAT score you have. But some of you, if you know you can do better, that's something to consider. The second thing that I want you to really be working on when you're trying to factor this out is your career trajectory. As I've mentioned several times, there are fantastic law schools across the spectrum. Even some of the unranked schools, they're fantastic. So I am not an elitist. I know I went to Princeton and Harvard Law School, but I am not an elitist. Your law school does not dictate your entire future, but for some of you, you have put in work. And it would kind of be, again, a little bit of a shame to rush the process. So for some of you, you may already have a PhD or a master's program. You've done substantial work in the field. Some of you want to go into legal academia. And I'm going to be very clear when I say this. You can do a lot of things from a lot of schools, but there are some schools that are better for some things. If you're thinking, I really want to be a constitutional law scholar, I really want to do legal academia, I really want to clerk for the Supreme Court, I really want to work for the ACLU, I really want to work for the Southern Poverty, Justice Center, or the Equal Opportunity, just like there's a lot of places that are like very prestigious in the public interest world and in the private sector. I really want to, work at Skadden or Cravath. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to leave that right there. If that's your goal, I'm praying for you, but I'm leaving right there. So, some of you have these big goals, and I love that. But have you prepared the process to actually achieve those goals? Because if you're telling me it's T14 or bust, but your LSAT's not ready, and you haven't really studied your essays, and yeah, you can get into law school if you apply in January or February. I don't ever recommend applying in February. But yeah, you can. But you're probably not going to get into the schools that you really want to. I believe in you. I believe in God opening doors, but I also believe in being realistic, right? God has also given us wisdom and discernment. God is not a genie. He's not making wishes, right? He orders our steps, but he also says that we need to do things in correct order. He also wants us to have discipline and discernment, right? And so I believe in being realistic. Some of you have not prepared enough to get to the schools that you want to go to get to the career places that you want. And for some of you, you have done so much in your life that the soft factors in your application would be really strong. Right? Your work experience and your impact in communities is already strong. You can have strong essays. But even with a decent LSAT score, applying in January or February does not give you the best opportunity for some schools. But if you aren't ready with the LSAT, and that's going to just completely change your trajectory for schools unnecessarily, then I think you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the career goals that you have to really evaluate what is the best timing for you, and you might need to defer. Defer does not mean cancel. Defer means defer. Defer means we are actually still working on our essays in January because we're not going to try to find ourselves in the same position. What I don't love to see is students who are like, I'm going to wait till next cycle, and then next cycle comes and they do the same exact thing. If you're making the decision to wait until next cycle, absolutely you should be working on your essays in January or February. I've already enrolled a lot of students for next cycle, students that are conscientious and are planning ahead, because that's how you want to approach this process. This is the beginning of your legal career, right? How you start your legal career is important, you know? And so you should be working on your essays from January through April. You should be applying to pipeline programs and fellowships and scholarships, outside scholarships. You should be maximizing those. You should be setting yourself up to hit submit in September or October if you're thinking about applying next cycle. There is literally no reason why anyone watching this right now who's thinking about applying to law school next cycle is not ready to hit submit in September or October. You have 9 months. With proper planning and execution, that should be the easiest thing that you've ever done. You should walk into it smiling. You should be just relaxed, like sipping like, a pina colada on the beach. Like that's how your application should feel if you're starting this early to apply next cycle. And that's what I love. I love helping people start this early because I also like pina coladas on the beach. And I like a relaxed, happy process because this is a huge deal, but it should be a celebration of all that you've done. It should be this, just pinnacle moment, this, changed moment in your life. So we should celebrate it, and we should not be like throwing things together and rushing the process and kind of being like, whatever, the essay is good enough. Like, just need to get out because it just needs to go, right? A strong application is always better than a rushed early application. Now, I've been talking a lot about not canceling your blessings. I want to talk a little bit about how late is too late. Now, I have had students who have applied in January, despite me telling them not to, and still get into top schools, still get into Harvard, still get into, Georgetown, Notre Dame, all those good schools, right? So I'm not saying that you can't apply in January or, even the beginning of February and get into a top school. But it is more likely that you will get in if you have scores that are at the medians or above the medians. But if you know you're an applicant that is applying below the medians, you honestly really should be trying to apply earlier when they have more of a leeway to be holistic. Schools know that they're going to take students below the median. They're going to take some students below the median. They're going to take some students at the median, some students above the medians, right? But your application timing really matters, because if you are below the medians, but you're really trying to get that holistic review out, they will have much more leeway earlier in the cycle, because at a certain point they will have accepted a number of students below the medians, and they will kind of be running out of space for students in that category. So, especially towards the end of the cycles, they're really making sure that their medians are, where they want it to be. And you don't want to be trying to come in like, okay, yeah, I'm like below everything, but here's my February application. First off, they judge how you apply. So when I get an application that seems rushed, or, it's in February, I'm like, wow, this person didn't really put that much planning into the situation. Their materials weren't all together, their essays weren't that great, and they applied in February. They just seem a little disorganized, a little unprepared. I don't know if that's the kind of lawyer that you want to be. I don't know if that's the kind of person you want to be showing them, right? You want to show them that you're committed, that you've been thinking about this, that you're disciplined, that you're prepared, that you have all your stuff together. That's really important. I don't like it when students apply to law school after February. People do it. You can still, I had a student that applied last year. He applied at the end of February, early March, and he did get into, I think, almost all of the schools that he wanted to go to, but his school list wasn't, an elite competitive school list. And so that's why your school list is important. There are some schools that regularly have most of their applicants apply in January and February. And so there are some schools that February is really not late. As late. It's not early. It's not early for anybody. But there are a lot of schools where January is on time, or where February is, on time / not that late, but there are also a lot of schools that have filled their class by February or filled most of their class by February. So it is very school dependent. I, as a lawyer, like to mitigate risk. So, can you get into law school if you apply in February? Yes. Is that the best way to mitigate risk? And is that the most, effective way to get acceptances and scholarship money? No, right? It is always less risky to apply in the fall, to apply earlier in the cycle if you're trying to maximize acceptances and scholarship money. There's a lot of scholarship deadlines that have already passed, right? That there's priority application deadlines and scholarship deadlines that are due in December for a reason. So when you throw in a February application, you may get in, you may not get in, but it will not be the same result as if you had applied in September or October. But I really don't suggest students apply, too much after the January LSAT scores come out. So those scores come out that first week of February. That really should be like your drop dead date. If we are talking about trying to take the February LSAT, I don't recommend it. You can do it if you want to. You might have success. I just can't recommend it because I can't recommend things that I think are inherently risky. And there are students that are like, well, I'll just apply, and then if it doesn't work out, I'll just reapply. I mean, I suppose. One, I don't know why you would waste all this application money. That seems just not a good use of money. But two, you can never get the opportunity to have a first impression again. Right? You are only a first-time applicant once. And then after that, you are a reapplicant. And you should change your essays. So it's kind of a waste of time. Like if you're going to work this hard on your essays and then just like I'll just reapply. Okay, fine. I'm glad that you wasted that essay. I hope that you're okay changing it. Most people don't want to, but it's lazy if you just submit the same exact application. So, that's a waste of your time. That's a waste of your money. That's a waste of your efforts. And again, you will never get the opportunity to get a first impression again. So when they're reading it, they probably will remember. They've got fantastic memories, admissions. I mean, I think that, it's like a superpower they have. But they will remember and realize that you're a reapplicant. And that doesn't mean that you can't be successful. I help a lot of reapplicants. Actually, my student that got into Berkeley was a reapplicant. But you have to reapply better than before with, updated and new materials, ideally updated LSAT score, and in a completely different manner. And I just don't think that the methodology of, I'll just see what happens, when we're talking about your legal career and future, I just don't understand. I don't think that's a very wise and prudent mindset to have. You should apply when you're ready. You should apply when you're the strongest, when you have your materials together. And ideally, you should not apply too much after that February LSAT score comes out, or the January LSAT score comes out in February. Applying, with the February LSAT puts you kind of in March. I just can't recommend anyone apply in March. I know that the internet is full of, well, I applied in June, and okay, sure, but to what schools, right? Like, I don't know, if that aligns with your career goals and that's the school that you wanted to go to anyways, sure, right? And I'll do a video in January about I always do is the January LSAT too late because people are concerned. And there are definitely schools and definitely situations in which the January LSAT makes sense. There are fewer schools and situations in which the February LSAT makes sense. So, to recap, right? Like you're trying to make the decision between whether you want to apply this cycle or apply next cycle, and you're just not sure. What are those things to consider? One, let's take a look at your LSAT journey. Did you prepare? Do you feel like you have given your all to the LSAT? You've given it all. You have nothing left to give. You have studied. You have tried your darndest, and you feel like that's the score, right? Do you feel that way? Or do you feel like, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't do my best. I didn't show up for me. I didn't make time for me. I didn't put myself first because I was putting everyone else first. I didn't study like I needed to. I didn't invest in a course. I didn't invest in a tutor. There's so much more. I'm leaving points on the table. If you're feeling like I'm leaving points on the table, because I know I did not show up for myself. That's okay. We are going to forgive ourselves. We are not going to be mad at ourselves. We're going to understand that everything happens in God's divine timing. But we're maybe going to make a plan to take the April LSAT. We're going to give ourselves a good 4 months to just get into it, to really change how we do it. We're going to take the April LSAT. We might even take the June LSAT. Listen, if you needed to, there's still the August LSAT. And we're going to get these applications in September or October. Same question. Question number 2 to ask yourself. Did I prepare for my essays? Did I ask someone to read them over? Did I give myself enough time? Do I feel good about where they are? Do I like my essays, and do I feel like they're an authentic representation of me, my story, and my writing ability? Like, am I coming across as a strong student? Check yes. Hey, maybe it's time to apply. December is not too late. Honestly, January is not too late. You just want to be strategic about the schools and how you're applying. If you're going to be honest with yourself, I tried to write all my essays in a weekend. I think they look like some hot dumpster trash. I haven't had time to get them reviewed by anyone. Just kind of throwing words on the paper and see what sticks. Yeah, I don't know. I would say maybe wait and let's try that again, because your essays are such an important part of your application. Your essays can overcome other weaknesses in your application, but also you are starting your legal career and you don't want to start your legal career just throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks. If you are saying to yourself, question number 3, I like the schools on my list, and I know that with the schools on my list, applying in December or January is on time, it's reasonable, and I am still giving myself a really good chance at those schools, and I'm happy with the chances of my outcome at those schools. I'm not saying, to look on all those Chance Me websites and count yourself out, but honestly, be realistic. Do I have a balanced list? A list of some reach schools, a list of some target schools, and a list of some, I'm not going to call them safety schools, but schools that I have a higher chance of getting into, right? Some schools should be easy to get into, some with scholarship money. Some schools should be so-so, and then some schools should be hard because you should shoot your shot, right? That's a balanced list. Do I have a balanced list? And do I feel like, right now, with my scores and my essays, that I still like and feel like I have a good chance at those schools that are easier to get into with scholarship money, and I have some schools in the middle that I feel good about, and I'm honestly, I would love to get into my reach schools, but I will be thrilled if I can get into my core schools that are easy to medium to get into, and I feel good with that process. I will not have regrets, and I feel like this is how I want to start my legal career. If you can say that, check, check, yes. If you cannot say that, if you look at your list and you're like, they're all reach schools. Listen, some of you, I've seen the lists. I'm like, but okay, all right. You should never only have reach schools. I don't care if you have a 175. You should never only have reach schools, right? You just shouldn't. You should have schools that are on that spectrum. You should have a balanced list. But if you're looking at your list and it's only reach schools, or you have some schools on your I could probably get in list, but I hate them. One, that means you need to do more research. There are 193 law schools. We can find 10 that you like. Okay. If you're like, I don't like any of the schools on my list except for the ones that I'm not likely to get into, and I'm going to shoot my shot, but I know I'm going to be really in my feelings and just butthurt if I can't, get into them, and I'm going to be upset, or if the only school I get into is this school, I'm just going to be really upset with life, and I'm not going to go, and, I'm just going to reapply next year. Well, then let's just stop the situation right now. Let's just make a better plan to apply when you're going to be in a better mindset and you're going to be more prepared so that you're happier with your outcomes. Do not set yourself up for that kind of emotional distress. All right, that doesn't make sense. And then that 4th question to ask is my school list tailored for my career outcomes, right? Can I achieve what I want to achieve with the schools on my list? And if not, what do I need to change? How can I prepare myself more? For some of you, it might be, hey, an extra year might give me an extra year of work experience that will really help my applications. I wanted to do family law I did family law. I was custody and divorce attorney. It was a time. I loved it. But I will say that I could have done family law from any law school. Loved my time at Harvard. Have no regrets. Would absolutely do it again. But also could have been a Maryland family law attorney from University of Baltimore. Honestly, probably would have learned more Maryland family law. Might have been a better family lawyer. I'm just going to put it out there. If your trajectory is not that, right? I mean, some of you want to do direct services work. You want to be helping domestic violence survivors. You want to, be a public defender. You can do that from a lot of places. Some of you want to be constitutional law scholars and you want to be a professor at Yale Law School. You really cannot do that from every place. So do your career outcomes and goals match your school list? And if not, do you have what you need right now to change that so that your school list matches your career outcomes? Or do you need to take another year to prepare? Right, so those are those 4 questions that I want you to ask yourself so that you can figure out what makes the most sense. And honestly, do you feel like it's a good time, right? Like, look around. Do you have a lot going on? Do you feel like in the fall would be a good time to start school? If you do need help with your personal statement in this winter break time, definitely check out my personal statement course. There's over 30 videos, a lot of me doing like this to you, a lot of templates and guides that can help you. But if you're looking to apply next cycle, if you're thinking that you want to wait, you want guidance, you want me to help you through the process, I'd love to get to know you. We are taking applications for the 2022-2023 cycle. And I would just absolutely love to help you on your legal journey. I'm so proud of you. I'm so thankful for you. Let me know how your cycle's going. I love learning about acceptances. It's like my favorite thing ever. So shoot me an email at info@smontgomeryconsulting.com. And otherwise, I will see all of you very beautiful people in the new year. Have a very, very happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, and a very happy new year.